Greetings, everyone. I'd like to say congratulations to the Konko Church of San Francisco on the completion of the Autumn Memorial Service for 2021. I am Reverend Robert Giulietti, the head minister of the Konko Church of Seattle, and some of you might know me as Bobby Sensei. I've been asked by Joanne Sensei to deliver a sermon for the service, and I'm very honored to do so. I hope to show my appreciation by providing words that may help you in your faith practice and receiving Kami's blessings. Well, I love this time of year. Having always been a sports fan, fall represents the beginning of football season. It's also when baseball season intensifies as teams battle for playoff spots. And of course, October brings us postseason baseball. We also return to school where we can once again see our friends and prepare to learn together. Leaves start changing colors and falling off of trees, and nature begins its renewal process for the following season, the following year. Now that I'm a minister of the Konko faith, it is also time we prepare for our fall worship season, which includes our semi-annual ancestral or Mitama service, which is today, and our fall grand ceremony in honor of the founder of the Way of Sacred Mediation, or Toritsugi, Ikigami Konko Daiji. I would like to share with you some thoughts about the following as it relates to ancestral worship. I would like to talk about the journey of our ancestors, in particular the transition from life to post-life. Konkokyo rituals related to ancestral worship and where our ancestors are today. Our ancestors' spirits are always present in our lives. Whether or not we receive these blessings depends on our own heart. Before becoming ancestors, Mitama spirits were born, lived lives supported by Kami, and upon death, transitioned to the afterlife where they became Mitama no Kami. Most recently in Seattle, we helped transition the spirit of the late Reverend Michihiro Iwasa, my predecessor who served the Konko Church of Seattle for the majority of his life. Late in June, in the Northwest, we experienced record temperatures. On Monday, June 28th, Seattle reached triple-digit temperatures for the third day straight, topping out at 108 degrees. Without adequate air conditioning, we would have been exposed to constant, unbearable heat. The facility where Iwasa Sensei lived did not have adequate air conditioning, and that day Iwasa Sensei was transported from his adult living facility to the intensive care unit at the Valley Medical Center in Renton, Washington. That night, the Iwasa family received the news that Sensei had only 24 to 48 hours to live due to the prognosis resulting from pneumonia and sepsis. Well, Sachio and Takashi, who are Iwasa's two elder sons who lived in the area, were able to alert Diane and Eddie, Sensei's remaining two children who both live in California. Both Eddie and Diane were able to visit by Wednesday, and luckily Iwasa Sensei was still living. However, he was unconscious and not able to communicate in any way. At the age of 95, his body was vulnerable to the excessive heat, and Diane and Eddie had no idea if they would make it in time to pay last respects. Diane in particular was very concerned because of the regret she felt for not being able to come to Seattle in time for the passing of her mother, Kisa Sensei, in 2019. Once the family was able to relay their last words, we prayed together every day for another week until Yuasa Sensei passed on July 8th, early in the morning. We performed a Mitama transfer service right away and transferred his spirit to a reiji, or a symbolic object of worship. I then transported this reiji to a temporary altar to which we prayed daily for 50 days. In Konkokyo, we use a 50-day period to allow the spirit of the recently deceased to transition to becoming enshrined as a permanent fixture of the Mitama altar. During this 50-day period, we held a celebration of life service on July 24th to honor his spirit. And after more than 50 days having elapsed since the separation of the spirit from the body, we also performed an enshrinement service on August 28th. Once enshrined, we now worship his spirit as a part of the Mitama altar. We pay particular acknowledgement to Yuasa Sensei, since his spirit is an integral part of the virtue that has been embedded in the Konko Church of Seattle. Now let's talk about the purpose and importance of the rituals of the memorial services. We celebrate 2 memorial services annually. As a ritual, this ceremony is held around the equinox in the spring and the fall. This ritual traces back to its Japanese origins. Since we live in the northern hemisphere at a specific longitude, we experience 2 days out of each year when daylight and nighttime are equal. These days are known as the fall and spring equinox. During the equinox, the earth is in balance with regard to its rotation to the sun, which gives an optimally balanced and peaceful environment for humans to honor their ancestors. This fall's equinox falls on September 22nd, directly between the fall memorial service of the Konko Church of San Francisco, which is held today, and the Konko Church of Seattle, which is scheduled for next Sunday, the 26th. For those of you who would like a link to attend virtually, let me know and I'll forward you the link. I have a feeling that the sermon will be very similar to today's, in case you would like to hear it again. In the spring, NBA teams are preparing to battle for playoff spots. And in the fall, of course, baseball teams are getting ready for postseason baseball in October. So this might be a good time for San Francisco Giants fans to honor the Giants along with your ancestors, who probably also rooted for the Giants. From this season's memorial service going forward, we will, at least in Seattle, dedicate a special acknowledgement to the spirit of Reverend Michihiro Yuasa, as his virtue will be recognized as part of the spiritual fabric of this church. Well, where are our ancestors today? Where is the spirit of Yuasa Sensei today? There are some who believe in reincarnation, that spirits are reborn to a new living being. And there are some able to see signs of existence by objects that trigger memories of the deceased. For example, my mother, who passed away in 2005, gave me a gold chain when I was 14 years old that clasps together, and it very rarely falls or moves. And recently it's been becoming loose and it's fallen off my neck a couple of times. And whenever that happens, I feel like my mother's trying to communicate something to me. And so that's how I feel, as though I'm getting communication from my mother. And I've also heard stories of those who swear that they sensed or felt a presence of a deceased family member who recently passed away. Some of us believe that our ancestors continue to exist in our hearts and memories of those who are living today. Let me repeat this one. Some of us believe that our ancestors continue to exist in the hearts and memories of those who are living today. For those of you who do not know Yuasa Sensei, he is a pioneer minister of the Konko faith in North America. He was called upon by Reverend Yoshiaki Fukuda to help propagate Konkokyo in North America during time when Japanese Americans were not necessarily accepted in all parts of our country. Fukuda Sensei, along with Kami, placed a considerable amount of trust in Yuasa Sensei to deliver on his calling to propagate faith in a land foreign to his home. Because of his unwavering trust in Kami, Yuasa Sensei left his wife and newborn son to travel overseas to accept his calling and arrived in San Francisco in 1954. Therefore, Yuasa Sensei's American journey is rooted in the Konko Church of San Francisco. After training in San Francisco, Yuasa Sensei was deployed to the Konko Church of Sacramento in 1959, becoming the head minister for the next chapter of his spiritual journey. Kami then arranged that Yuasa Sensei and his family moved to Seattle, where he would serve as the head minister from 1966 to 2018, a tenure which spanned over 5 decades. Therefore, Yuasa Sensei began his tenure at the Konko Church of Seattle before his successor was even born. And of course, that would be me. For those of you who have met Yuasa Sensei or any of his family members, I repeatedly hear words like kind, sincere, and generous from people who have met any member of the Yuasa family. His surviving family is very tight and supportive of one another and those around them. They are also willing to help the efforts of our church whenever called upon. His great-granddaughter was born earlier this year, Mila May, and had the chance to meet Yuasa Sensei before he passed. His virtue continues to spread throughout the Northwest and North American Konkokyo community. In closing, let's revisit the spirits we honor here today. Every one of those enshrined to this Mitama altar have experienced this transition from a spirit who occupied a human body during their lives on earth to a spirit that is now part of Kami, a spirit we worship on a regular basis. Immortality is important for humans. Immortality is when others continue to pray for you after you die. Some of us who are living today acknowledge our ancestors twice a year, some of us once a month, and some pray to our ancestors on a daily basis. We sincerely offer gifts to them. We honor them by bowing in front of the altar and offering a prayer. We present the utmost respect and reverence for these spirits who lived lives that made our lives possible. The responsibility that they bestowed to us is to evolve and leave this world a better place for our children, their descendants. I would like to ask you to imagine along with me by closing your eyes and looking into our collective crystal ball. It is now the year 2121. You see a memorial service being held for a spirit that recently passed in the Konko Church of Mars. Just kidding, the Konko Church of San Francisco. You look around and you see the expressions on the faces of the congregation. A congregation full of sincere elders, working adults, and many, many children. Looks of concentration, looks of honor, reverence, respect, and joy. And they are all proud to be a descendant of this spirit. I could only venture to guess how the spirit who's being honored feels. I would imagine if this spirit were able to express his or her feeling, I would guess that expression would be like the expressions you see around you today. Again, I would like to thank you, and I would like to again congratulate the Konko Church of San Francisco on the completion of today's Autumn Memorial Service for 2021.